Chapter 5, Beast from Water. The tide was coming in, and there was only a narrow strip of firm beach between the water and the white stumbling stuff near the palm terrace. Ralph chose the firm strip as a path because he needed to think, and only here could he allow his feet to move without having to watch them. Suddenly, pacing by the water, he was overcome with astonishment. He found himself understanding the wearisomeness of this life, where every path was an improvisation, and a considerable part of one's waking life was spent watching one's feet. He stopped, facing the strip, and remembering that first enthusiastic exploration as though it were part of a brighter childhood. He smiled jeeringly. He turned then and walked back toward the platform with the sun in his face. The time had come for the assembly, and as he walked into the concealing splendors of the sunlight, he went carefully over the points of his speech. There must be no mistake about this assembly, no chasing imaginary. He lost himself in a maze of thoughts that were rendered vague by his lack of words to express them. Frowning, he tried again. So as you can see here, Ralph feels like he's losing control of the group, and he's getting nervous. And so he's thinking over how the assembly needs to go and what he needs to say to get people back on his side. This meeting must not be fun, but business. At that, he walked faster, aware all at once of urgency and the declining sun, and a little wind created by his speed that breathed about his face. This wind pressed his gray shirt against his chest so that he noticed, in this new mood of comprehension, how the folds were stiff like cardboard and unpleasant. Noticed, too, how the frayed edges of his shorts were making an uncomfortable pink area on the front of his thighs. With a convulsion of the mind, Ralph discovered dirt and decay, understood how much he disliked perpetually flicking the tangled hair out of his eyes, and at last, when the sun was gone, rolling noisily to rest among the dry leaves, at that he began to trot. So if his hair is getting long and his shorts are causing friction on his skin, then that means what? Think about it. He's been on the island for a while, right? And it's no longer fun. And he doesn't have the luxuries that we have in life, like simply getting a haircut. The beach near the bathing pool was dotted with groups of boys waiting for the assembly. They made way for him silently, conscious of his grim mood and the fault at the fire. The place of assembly in which he stood was roughly a triangle, but irregular and sketchy like everything they made. First, there was the log on which he himself sat, a dead tree that must have been quite exceptionally big for the platform. Perhaps one of those legendary storms of the Pacific had shifted it here. This palm trunk lay parallel to the beach, so that when Ralph sat, he faced the island, but to the boys was a darkish figure against the shimmer of the lagoon. The two sides of the triangle, of which the log was base, were less evenly defined. On the right was a log polished by restless seats along the top, but not so large as the chief's and not so comfortable. So there has been some trees that have knocked over for some reason, and Ralph is thinking maybe it's because of a storm. So this area is just kind of naturally a great place to have an assembly. On the left were 4 small logs, one of them, the farthest, lamentably springy. I want to mention also that I know a lot of these words are new and they are difficult. And what I want you to do is just try to understand what you think they mean in context, okay? Because the best way to learn vocabulary is by learning how to read clues within a sentence and try to figure out what you think the meaning is. Okay, I won't stop until 5 more minutes. Assembly after assembly had broken up in laughter when someone had leaned too far back and the log had whipped and thrown half a dozen boys backwards into the grass. Yet now he saw no one had had the wit, not himself, nor Jack, nor Piggy, to bring a stone and wedge the thing. So they would continue enduring the ill-balanced twister because, again, he lost himself in deep waters. Kids are having fun. Grass was worn away in front of each trunk, but grew tall and untrodden in the center of the triangle. Then, at the apex, the grass was thick again because no one sat there. All around the place of assembly, the gray trunks rose, straight or leaning, and supported the low roof of leaves. On 2 sides was the beach, behind the lagoon, in front, the darkness of the island. Ralph turned to the chief's seat. They had never had an assembly as late before. That was why the place looked so different. Normally, underside of the green roof was lit by a tangle of golden reflections, and their faces were lit upside down. Like, thought Ralph, when you hold an electric torch in your hands. But now the sun was slanting in at one side so that the shadows were where they ought to be. Again, he fell into that strange mood of speculation that was so foreign to him. If faces were different when lit from above or below, what was a face? What was anything? Ralph moved impatiently. The trouble was, if you were a chief, you had to think, you had to be wise. And then the occasion slipped by so that you had to grab at a decision. This made you think, because thought was a valuable thing that got results. Only, decided Ralph as he faced the chief's seat, I can't think, not like Piggy. Once more that evening, Ralph had to adjust his values. Piggy could think. He could go step by step inside that fat head of his. Only Piggy was no chief. But Piggy, for all his ludicrous body, had brains. Ralph was a specialist in thought now and could recognize thought in another. The sun in his eyes reminded him how time was passing, so he took the conch down from the tree and examined the surface. Exposure to the air had bleached the yellow and pink to near white and transparency. Ralph felt a kind of affection reverence for the conch, even though he had fished the thing out of the lagoon himself. He faced the place of assembly and put the conch to his lips. The others were waiting for this and came straight away. Those who were aware that a ship had passed the island while the fire was out were subdued by the thought of Ralph's anger, while those, including the little uns, who did not know, were impressed by the general air of solemnity. The place of assembly filled quickly. Jack, Simon, Maurice, most of the hunters on Ralph's right, the rest on the left under the sun, so they're becoming divided. Piggy came and stood outside the triangle. This indicated that he wished to listen, but would not speak, and Piggy intended it as a gesture of disapproval. The thing is, we need an assembly. No one said anything, but the faces turned to Ralph were intent. He flourished the conch. He had learned as a practical business that fundamental statements like this had to be said at least twice before everyone understood them. One had to sit attracting all eyes to the conch and drop words like heavy round stones among the little groups that crouched or squatted. He was searching his mind for simple words so that even the little uns would understand what the assembly was about. Later, perhaps, practiced debaters, Jack, Maurice, Piggy, would use their whole art to twist the meeting. But now at the beginning, the subject of the debate must be laid out clearly. We need an assembly, not for fun, not for laughing and falling off the log. The group of little ones on the twister giggled and looked at each other, not for making jokes or for, he lifted the conch in an effort to find the compelling word. For cleverness, not for these things, but to put things straight. He paused for a moment. I've been alone. By myself, I went thinking what's what. I know what we need, an assembly to put things straight. And first of all, I'm speaking. He paused for a moment and automatically pushed back his hair. Piggy tiptoed to the triangle his ineffectual protest made and joined the others. Ralph went on. We have lots of assemblies. I'm going to pause there.